to deal with it, to ensure that once and for all, we have a level playing field. It's quite a simple recommendation. We can't complicate it. It's very, very simple, and we put all the mechanisms in place to support people. So it's very, very brief from me, but it's much wider contextually than we're making it out to be.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this table as well. Thank you so much for your feedback. Really useful points. I think Bishop Desmond, you and I are going to have a longer conversation about some of those issues that we discussed in this space. Okay. Other tables who have discussed the questions. Table at the back, please. And can we be brief? We only have Doreen and the Minister until 12:30 at the most.
Hannah John, representing Black Cultural Archive. I'm going to try and keep it brief and pass it on to Dr. Melissa Cox. But I think there is a little bit of skirting around what we are discussing. And whilst we are discussing Windrush, one of the reasons PCA in 2021 stepped down is because actually there is a failure to acknowledge what this really represents, which is racism, discrimination, and that is a bigger issue. And so actually the discussion around restorative dialogue is about how do we right injustices across various sectors, education, migration, policy. That is what the real core issue is. And there isn't going to be trust if people aren't seeing action. And that requires some devolution, it requires devolution of money, resources, so that actually there are a lot of people in this room already doing the work who need support, who need the resources to do it, and actually part of the Home Office and government is sitting in those rooms and hearing the truth, and unfortunately it will require being shouted at. But the people in the rooms who are doing the work can support to then mend and begin that journey, as we say, as they started the journey. But we actually need to deal with the core issues. There are many oral issues collected. We have them at BCA. People, they're in the news. Lawyers have them. We don't need to redraw lawyers, but we do need to fix the systems that people can't access. Mental health, all of them, and I think that's part. We need to start saying what the issue is and dealing with it in that.
I'm Dr. Anita Cox, and I just wanted to follow up on what Hannah said. I think, obviously, trust can't be built until we have addressed the issue of racism. And I think key to that is understanding how Britain as a nation is framed. We still see it as being Britain as this white country, and something needs to be done. I don't think Britain's even reconsidered its identity since the Second World War. And I don't know when Britain is going to sit up and face, we've not only passed through multiculturalism, we're in a moment of super diversity. And that means that if we're going to be honest about who we are as a country, then we have to address the issue of education and making sure that it's not about Black British history on one corner, somebody else's history over there. British history is about the empire and about all the Commonwealth countries that have contributed to it. And it shouldn't be an elective subject. It shouldn't be something that students at school can go, oh, I don't feel like doing that. The whole country has to understand that. And until it does, we will continue to have rioting on the streets, people thinking, is he black, is he white, who did this crime, who did this, who did that. So I think that's a key thing. The other thing that we were talking about, the concerns that's on the table, Pauline Campbell was talking about the growth in the popularity of reform. None of this is going to be addressed with reform building momentum if we don't deal with the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is racism. So there's a huge issue that goes way beyond the scandal. It's something that all Black people and people of colour in this country face. And as Jackie was talking about, you know, I mean, even the when we're looking at the Windrush Lessons Learned, a lot of it was about history and amnesia and people not understanding about the whole context of empire. So when we're doing these reconciliation events, I think the other thing is that we need to take in the other recommendations as part of it. So history has to be, racism and all of these issues have to be a core part of the discussion that goes forward with to make reconciliation possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Were there any points on this table? Okay. Can you be super quick?
Yeah, sure.
Hello, my name is Van Ferguson. I'm a solicitor at Southern Law Centre and work with Sharon and most people at that table actually. I'm just very quickly on one of the principles to add is just to reaffirm the commitment to properly capturing and recognising the harm caused by the scandal. The compensation guideline itself, I just spoke to a couple of people on other tables. It still to this day doesn't capture the harm caused by the effect of deportation order on people who are serving prison sentences and when they're due to be released from closed prison conditions, open prison conditions, and how it escalates the risk of harm, the risk of them absconding. And how I have a number of clients now who have been forced to stay in closed prison conditions for the entirety of their prison sentence until they're released from licence, which has dramatic effects for their sort of rehabilitation back into the community. Just as one example of how after 5 or 6 years the government still doesn't recognise it. And the question that is begging to be asked is, how has that been missed in terms of the interrelation between a deportation order and a criminal justice element of it as well? And just to re-evaluate how you go about producing the systems and understanding the interrelation between immigration rules and criminal rules as well. So,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll just make a few comments to what has already been said. I think I'm from Scotland. I was listening when my sister was talking from Wales. I think the experience is the same, that there is lack of support when it comes to those outlying areas where the work is being done. You know, Windrush has received a lot of publicity in England, but when it comes to Scotland, the media has not been very keen on covering Windrush. So all the publicity is happening organically using organizations like our own. When it comes to the events, I think there is need to come up with a template, you know, of what the events will look like. What will be the objectives from the events, and what are the perceived outcomes that should come out of the events. I mean, when you look at in Scotland, we don't even use the word advocacy, because that the terrain in Scotland is not yet there at that level. We are using raising awareness as a way of trying to make sure people are aware that Windrush is an issue that the government is now seized on. And I think the approach from the minister, whereby she's being visible and engaging with communities at such a high level, I think it has been very useful to try and give people the perception that yes, something is going to happen, because there is fatigue among people when it comes to the government dealing with issues. I mean, there's a lot of talk, but quite often there are no tangible and practical measures that are implemented. I think the other issue is that the Home Office is not very good at committing resources when it comes, you know, to delivering on programs. I think we have seen the commitment of the 1.5 million from the Home Office, which is a good start, but that's just a very tiny drop in the ocean. I mean, the work at hand will need, you know, more funding than that. Then the issue of the Windrush Commissioner. How is that role going to sit within the Home Office scheme of things? And where is the Windrush Commissioner going to be placed in terms of engaging with the communities and organizations that are doing this kind of work? And I think there is need for more clarity on the role. Once the person is imposed, we need to know how the commissioner is going to work. And also in terms of the spread, you know, the UK has places like Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. We need to know how the office of the commissioner is going to spread its wings to cover those outlying areas. And in terms of support, I think there is very little support when it comes to organizations like ours that are doing the work in the outlying areas. Geolocation and where we we are. I think these are issues that will need to be addressed. And also lastly, when you talk of Windrush and the Home Office, this cannot be talked about in isolation because Windrush is a national issue. Where what the role of the Parliament in legislating unfair pieces of legislation, and these are the people who endorsed some of these measures which were used, because quite often immigration issues they play out in the Parliament, and in some cases have been decided on the basis of what is going on in the debating chambers in the Parliament. So we need to know how the Parliament is going to be put to account in terms of their role in implementing and legislating on some of these laws which were used especially by the Conservative government. I think I'll just stop there.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to cut short our verbal feedback for now because I'm acutely aware that Baroness Doreen Lawrence has been waiting to speak and she does need to leave at about 12:30 and I want to give her some time to share with you all. For those who haven't had a chance to, please, we will come to you and we will make sure we collect all of the feedback that you discussed on your tables or elsewhere in the room today. So, introduce me, please. Yeah. Oh, does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Look, thank you very much. In the interest of just slightly reorganising the agenda, I'm just was going to make a final couple of wrap-up points and introduce Baroness Lawrence. And I just want to say a huge thank you for all the contributions, and they've been incredibly rich. And I think for us, just very important in reconnecting for those of us who weren't directly involved through the Home Office in previous governments. But this is the start of an ongoing dialogue. And I do want to say as well, some questions about how the Home Office will work alongside the new Windrush Commissioner. I think what will be so important is that the forthcoming appointment of the Windrush Commissioner will be able to further strengthen our commitment to be engaging with impacting individuals and drive the changes needed, and indeed to make sure that we have that increased capacity to do so and to have that independent voice and representation at the heart of government. And the independent advocacy, I think, will also be significant because it won't just be about the Home Office. It has the opportunity, as that role develops, to be able to be that voice for wider government programmes and policy, and certainly inequalities that I think we know exist across government, areas of work across government. But it is important as well that the Commissioner has their own budget, and like other Home Office Commissioners, they will be supported by civil servants in the development of their independent functions, but it will be their choice about where they focus their time and then the recommendations that they may put forward for the Home Secretary and Ministers as well. And indeed, we recognise it will be important as part of that function to be holding the Home Office to account in how we are looking at the implementation of the lessons learnt review recommendations and how we are delivering and promoting lasting change. I just want to make this point because I've really heard this very clearly, and it was certainly on our mind, but it's important to have that heard as well, that ensuring that we have appropriate mental health and trauma support for survivors and giving their testimony and through the process is very much on our minds, and we recognise that responsibility and prioritising the physical and emotional well-being of those who we do want to see and do want to encourage to be coming forward, and making sure that we give due consideration for individuals about how they want to choose to make their voices heard and through what channels and through what process. And I also recognise that this is one of a number of engagement events that we have had and will need to continue to have, in terms of making sure that we then can move forward with a process that is one that will command confidence and have those, in a sense, those safeguarding measures as part of that process, and also clarity on what we see as the outcomes. But I will just end now by making that link with the wider race equality work that we do have across government. And to thank Dominic for also being here from the Cabinet Office, and to say that the work of the Race Equality Engagement Group that Baroness Lawrence will be chairing will be very important in how we have a wider impact across a range of areas, with the members of that group able to provide expert advice and lived experience, but also then connecting and being part of how we connect with communities on those wider questions of inequality, race inequalities across a number of areas which have been alluded to, and where there are connections with how we move forward on reconciliation too. So I'm incredibly pleased and proud to be able to introduce Baroness Doreen Lawrence to be able to say a few words.
Well, it's good afternoon everyone, and thank you to the Minister and to Debbie for inviting me here today. I always feel disappointed at times when I sit and I listen to the voices of people who's been impacted on generations, the Windrush. And I should say that I know that since 2018, when the scandal broke, so it wasn't this government that was in power at the time. So this government now has the opportunity to make a difference, to make those changes. So we can't keep saying and looking back, oh, that happened whenever, or that happened. You know, this is an opportunity now. So I've been listening today. I was sad, really sad, listening to the voices of those who have been impacted. And time is important, because a lot of people have passed away. Time is so important. And somebody talk about the hostile environment. Yes, it has been and continues to be for so many people. I made some notes while everybody was speaking, so I just want to sort of reflect on some of them, what I've heard. And I think one of the big things is about around excluded and divided. There's many times people sit in a room, they talk about their experience, they talk about the impact, but the listening is not happening. They're not taking it on board, or what it is that needs to be done. Education. One of the big things I've always talked about is education. How do we educate our generations to come? And in fact, generation as old as I am. Because the Windrush didn't just happen. The government of the day went across to the Caribbean and invited people to come after the Second World War to build this country, which they took and they answered and they came. But they came to a hostile environment, because when they were going out to invite people here, they did not explain to the country who is going to have the impact of people, and I don't know how many hundred turned out, but to say, these people are coming here to help us to build our country. They fought for us in the war, they died for us. So this is what's going to happen. So that information never went out to people. So there's no understanding of why these generation of people came here. This is where education is going to be so important. If we talk about the kings and queens of this country, we need to go back and look at the generation and to re-educate people. So when I talk about decolonized education, it's not just for the black community, it's for everybody. So everybody begin to understand the reason behind a lot of things that's happened. The white kids, they need to understand also that people's coming to help you. So those sort of things that needs to happen. Education is so important, and if we don't do that and start doing that, in our conversation that I've had before the lead up to the election, we talk about education, and if we do not address that, we're going to continue to have racism in this country because people have the lack of understanding that's here. Taking on this role as chair of the Race Equality Engagement Group, I want to hear from all of you because I don't see me being seen as a talking people to come and talk to me. I want to see what's going to come out of it, the policy that's going to happen, for government to change to make sure that they address through education, health, everything that needs to be addressed. And I've spoken about this to the minister already. I don't want people to use my name to say, oh, Dory Lawrence is doing this. It has to have an impact. And if it is not going to have an impact, then I don't want to have anything to do with it. So we need to make sure that we go around the country, hear what everybody has to say, ask them what would they like to see. If you don't ask the question, you're never going to get the answers. So we need to hear that. And for me, that is so important. So being here today and listening, for me, I always feel so humble when I hear people talk about their experience. Because I presume I came over here and a 6-year-old child came here, but I was one of the fortunate ones that my parents had their own house. So they weren't knocking on the door asking for somebody to rent them a room. So I was fortunate, but a lot of people weren't. And we need to understand all of that. We need to understand the impact it has had. And for people who are dying, from the time the scandal came out, and it was happening before that, people went back to, say, to Jamaica, that's in a country I don't really know, to go and visit or to go to a funeral and not able to come back. And when they were introducing about nationalisation, I'm not sure how many and where it went. I was one of those who heard, even though I came as a British citizen, I applied for that. So if my daughter had born in 1983, I would have to apply for nationalisation for her, because if we did not have those documents, she would not be seen as British. And at times, this is the only country you can be born in, and you're not of the nationality of the country. So that needs to change. So for me, taking on this role, I want to see the difference that we can make. I want to see government beginning to listen and put policies in place that we do not sit here in 10, 15 years' time talking about the same thing. I want to see change. And I will be knocking on the door of the government and the Prime Minister, because it is important for them, and for him also to hear, because I think most of the time he's not listening. He needs to hear and understand people's feeling the impact on their lives, on their children. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baroness Lawrence. It's always an honour to hear from you. I don't get a chance to hear from you enough, so it's really lovely to have heard your words, and thank you for sharing them with us. And also enormous thanks to Minister Malhotra for your time this morning and into the afternoon. Also for your honesty and your openness, and also for sharing the next steps with everyone in the room. And I'm sure everyone in the room will be looking forward to working with the Minister as we take the next steps. So, just to say, thank you so much for your time today. You have shared so much with us. Some of you have shared your personal experiences, and we are always deeply grateful to those of you who have had the opportunity to do so. I don't think we will ever stop thanking you for doing that and for being willing to share. And it's important to thank you for that. But also to all of you just for sharing your expertise. This is the beginning of the process. The only thing to say by way of closing is that we will have taken copious notes, everything that you shared. And for those of you who we didn't get to with regards to feedback, we will get that information for you, and we will share that note with everyone who has come today, and indeed those who said they were coming but were unable to be with us. And we will be in continuous contact with the Minister's team as this process goes forward. And indeed, once the Commissioner starts, we're all looking forward to when they start, we know that we'll be able to start thinking really practically about what this process will look like. I've taken away quite a lot from this conversation In particular, I think some of the points raised about recommendation 3 and what it means and what it's saying, I think there is a lot here for us to think about. There are some broader ramifications which link to Windrush but are also bigger than it. And for those of you who said the elephant in the room is racism, it's never an elephant in the room, we must always name it. Thank you for saying it, this is important. It contextualises everything that we've discussed and indeed contextualises everything that has brought us to this place. And all that's left to say is we've got this room till 1:30, so please have tea and coffee. And I don't know if there's any pastries left, but if there are, we should eat them. Thank you all for your time, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
I don't know. But why?